Welcome to a quiet place for tired minds, a series of calm reflections for overwhelmed humans living in a noisy world. Today, I'd like to ask you a question, not because I expect you to answer it immediately, but because perhaps it's a question we've forgotten to ask ourselves. Who is rushing you? Really, who? Somewhere along the way, many of us begin living as though every moment was running late. We hurry through breakfast, we hurry through conversations, we hurry through weekends, through seasons. Sometimes we even hurry through the very moments we once dreamed of living, always believing that peace is waiting somewhere further ahead. Just one more achievement, one more promotion, one more holiday, one more milestone, and then I'll slow down. Then I'll enjoy life. But that day has a curious habit of moving further away every time we reach it. A few days ago, I found myself sitting beside a small mountain stream. The water was traveling a long way before reaching this quiet place. High above, it has begun as rain or melting snow. Tiny drops, finding one another before becoming something strong enough to carve its own path through the landscape. I sat there for a long time, watching the water slip gently around stones that had probably been resting there for hundreds of years. It never argued with them. It never became frustrated because something stood in its way. It simply found another way forward, politely, patiently, without needing anyone to notice. The longer I watch it, the more I realize it. The stream wasn't trying to arrive anywhere. It wasn't racing towards the valley. It wasn't measuring itself against another river. It wasn't worrying whether it had fallen behind. It simply kept moving. Not quickly, not slowly, simply at a pace that belonged to it. And I wondered, when did we stop trusting our own pace? When did we begin believing that someone else's timeline should become our own? When did we decide that life was something to win rather than something to experience? Perhaps that's why so many of us feel exhausted. Not because life asks too much of us, but because we've quietly started asking too much of ourselves. To achieve faster, to heal faster, to earn more, to become wiser, to have the answers sooner, to somehow arrive before we even allow ourselves to enjoy the journey. The little stream beside me seemed completely unconcerned. It wasn't trying to become a waterfall. It wasn't wishing it were the ocean. It wasn't trying to skip the bend in its path. It simply trusted that every turn belonged to the journey. And perhaps that is something we've forgotten. Movement has never required hurry. Maybe we've confused the two for so long that we've forgotten they were ever different. So before we go any further, I'd like to leave you with one gentle question. Not one to solve, just one to carry beside you. If nobody were rushing you, who would you live today? Let's stay with this for a little while. I think one of the reasons we hurry so much is because we've quietly mistaken a full calendar for a full life. Somewhere being busy becomes something to admire, almost a badge of honor. We ask one another, how have we been? And without thinking we answer, busy. As tough, it explains everything. As tough, it somehow proves that our days have mattered. Yet sitting beside that little stream, none of that seemed important. The water wasn't trying to prove how productive it had been. It wasn't keeping count of how many stones it had passed. It wasn't worried that another stream somewhere else might be flowing faster. It simply continued, one bend at a time. I watched a single wave drift across the water. Sometimes it moved quickly. Then it caught against a rock and rested for a moment before gently finding its way again. The stream never seemed impatient with it. It never demanded, "Come on, you're failing behind." It simply carried on, making space for both movement and stillness. Perhaps we've forgotten that our own lives have seasons like that too. There are times for climbing, times for resting, times for beginning again, and times when it feels as though nothing much is happening at all. Yet, beneath the surface, something is always changing. Roots grow long before branches reach the sky. Snow melts long before rivers begin to swell. Morning arrives long before the sun reaches its highest point. Nature has never been afraid of taking its time. Maybe that's why we feel so disconnected. We expect ourselves to bloom in every season, to always be achieving, always improving, always becoming. When even the mountains around us have spent thousands of years becoming what they are. The stream wasn't trying to reach the end of its journey. It seemed completely content to be exactly where it was. Not because it has stopped moving, but because every part of the journey was already the journey. And I couldn't help wondering how many beautiful moments have slipped quietly past us, simply because our minds were already somewhere else. How many cups of coffee finished without tasting them? How many sunsets seen through a camera before our own eyes? How many conversations half heard because we were already thinking about tomorrow? Perhaps hurry doesn't only steal our peace. Perhaps it steals our presence. The stream kept flowing, without applause, without deadlines, without needing to arrive. And somehow, that felt wiser than almost everything I've been taught about success. Which made me wonder if life isn't asking us to move faster, what it is asking of us. As I sat there, listening to the gentle sound of the stream, I found myself thinking about something I'd never questioned before. Perhaps the greatest pressure we carry isn't the one life places upon us. Perhaps it's the one we quietly place upon ourselves. We carry invisible deadlines. By now, I should be further ahead. I should know more, have more, earn more, become more. And without realizing it, we begin measuring our lives against clocks that were never truly ours. I wonder how many of these expectations we actually choose for ourselves, and how many simply found us through comparison, through advertising, through social media, or through the quiet fear of being left behind. The little stream beside me didn't seem concerned about any of that. It wasn't trying to become the widest river or the tallest waterfall. It wasn't asking whether it had started too late or whether another stream had traveled further. It simply honored the path beneath it. Perhaps that is what gives nature its quiet confidence. Nothing tries to become something else. An oak tree never envies a pine. The mountains never compete with the clouds. The stream never wishes it were the sea. Everything belongs by being exactly what it is. Somewhere along the way, many of us forgot that. We began believing that our worth depends on how quickly we arrive at, rather than how honestly we travel it. But maybe a meaningful life cannot be measured by speed. Maybe it is measured by the kindness we've offered, the people we've loved, the moments we've truly noticed, the courage to begin again, the quiet strength to keep flowing around the rocks instead of giving up because they appeared. The stream reminded me that progress doesn't always make a noise. Sometimes The most important changes happen quietly, gently, that only time reveals them, stone by stone, season by season, drop by drop. The valley is shaped not by one great rush of water, but by countless quiet moments that never stopped flowing. Perhaps we're more like that than we realize. Maybe the life you're building today won't make sense until years from now. Maybe the small acts of kindness, the difficult conversations, the mornings you choose hope instead of fear, are already shaping someone you're still becoming. Not all growth announces itself. Some of it is wonderfully silent. So maybe the question isn't, am I moving fast enough? Maybe the better question is, am I moving in a way that feels true to who I am? Because perhaps the most beautiful journey have never been about arriving before everyone else. They've been about becoming yourself, one honest step at a time. Let's stay with that thought for a little while. As the afternoon slowly slipped over the evening, the light began to soften across the valley. The stream was exactly as it had been when I arrived, still flowing, still winding its way around the same stones, still completely unconcerned about what lay beyond the next bend. And I realized that perhaps peace isn't something we discover. One's life finally becomes less busy. Perhaps peace begins the moment we stop believing that every day is a race we have to win. The truth is, life will probably continue asking things of us. There will still be responsibilities, deadlines, unexpected changes, moments when everything feels wonderfully full, and others when it feels almost too much. This reflection isn't an invitation to step out of life. It's an invitation to step into it differently. Not with less purpose, but with less panic. The stream didn't stop because it met a stone. It didn't turn back because the path became difficult. It simply adjusted. And then it continued. Perhaps resilience has never been about forcing our way through life. Perhaps it's about learning when to soften, when to bend, and when to simply keep flowing. There's something deeply comforting about knowing that we don't have to become someone else to live a meaningful life. We don't have to rush to catch up. We don't have to prove that we're making enough progress. maybe today, the next small step is enough. Maybe this conversation is enough. Maybe this ordinary afternoon is far more precious than we realize. One day we won't remember every email we answered or every task we crossed off our list. But we may remember the sound of water moving over stone, a conversation that made us feel understood, the warmth of sunlight on our face, the quiet relief of finally letting ourselves breathe. In the end, perhaps these are the moments that become the true measure of a life. Before I left, I looked at the stream one last time. It hadn't reached the sea. It hadn't finished its journey. It was simply faithful to the part of the journey it had been given today. And perhaps that's all life has ever asked of us. Not to hurry, not to compare, not to arrive before anyone else, but to meet each day with an open heart and trust our own rhythm, one honest step at a time. So if today you've been feeling behind or overwhelmed or quietly wondering whether you're moving fast enough, I hope you'll remember the little mountain stream. It has never confused movement with hurry. And maybe we don't have to either. Thank you for spending this quiet time with me. Until next time, take gentle care of your mind